So recently, Elegoo were kind enough to get in touch and offer me the Mars 4 Ultra 3D resin printer. Not had the best time with 3D printers on this channel. Most of that was down to being sent unfinished products for the most part. This time, however, I've been sent a printer that's been commercially available for about a year, which is nice. It has first and third party support and actually works how it should. The vat also makes for a really nice frame drum, so that's a bonus. Leveling this guy is a piece of piss, with the supplied sheet of paper, flattening the plate as flat as it's gonna go, and tightening the bolts. Done. With my older printers, this always felt harder to achieve for some reason. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's science, maybe it's magic. Additional note for my YouTube friends, don't fill your photo curing resin vat underneath your super bright daylight lamps. That is probably going to ruin everything pretty quickly. The one thing that boils my collective humours a little bit on this is that once the file has been transferred from the slicer to the printer, you don't know how long a print will take until it's started printing the bottom few layers. Okay, while the Mars 4 does its calibration and test prints, it's time to set up something else that Elegoo sent me. The wash and cure station. Wash and cure stations are something that I'd never really bothered with before. Wash in, you just swish it around in a vat of isopropyl alcohol, done. Cure in, bang it on the windowsill for half hour, done. But I figured that I would try my hand, since the gear was offered to me for free, to see if they're worth the investment. The wash station is a little bit like a chip fryer with a wireless rotating motor at the bottom that creates a funky little vortex of cleaning solution. I like that. This circulates the liquid and cleans the prints for however long you want it to do. And the cure station is a pop world rotating dance floor, but it's less depressing and predatory. All in all, the wash and cure station, not very expensive, definitely worth your time. Okay, so we've done some test prints that we've got from Bisterium Miniatures on my mini factory at 10 micron layer height, which is a bit tiny. And that is the finest layer height that you can get on this printer. And we want to see if these models are as smooth as mass-produced resin or plastic miniatures. And to do this, we're going to basically press them against the Laowa probe lens. The Laowa is a surreal experience to film with, but it views the world in a truly strange and uncanny way. What you see in here are primed models that just came off the printer. All that texture you're seeing is paint pigment. That's actually acrylic pigment on the model. It looks perfectly smooth to the eye, but through the probe lens we can see the individual pigments of paint. But I'll tell you what you can't see is the layer lines. And these layer lines are very common with 3D printing. and it is one of the main things that puts a lot of people off getting into resin printers. Just to reiterate, the bobbly texture we just saw is exactly how every primed miniature looks, at least through this lens. And so essentially what we've printed is flawless, and that is kind of nuts. But I want to do something big and really find a way to stress test the quality of these prints. So I put the Mars 4 Ultra to work on printing something that we could really get our teeth into.
Come on down to the Squarespace website and the Emporium. What's up, guys? Tony D here, turning tricks and making quips, and I'm here to talk to you today about today's sponsor, Squarespace. Have you ever thought to yourself, man, what I need is a website all about me? Sure I do. I'm an egomaniac all the time. Well, now you can with Squarespace's browser-based web designer that's easy to use and comes preloaded with an unsettling amount of templates from award-winning designers just to get you started. Along with that, the templates cover blogs, vlogs, guestbooks. Are guestbooks still a thing? Online stores. Oh, come on. Portfolio. And speaking of online stores, if you've ever wanted to do business like the pros and have your own online store, well, now you can, with no commission or skim from the provider. Along with that, you can also add your store's existing EPOS system to the site to have your inventory ready to go. And of course, we gotta mention that domain acquisition tab, guys. Oh, it's my favorite part. Tony's favorite thing ever. Want a name for your website? Sure. Head on over to this tab, type in the domain and the name you want to go for, and immediately connect it to the name and the stuff and the rest of the world. And it's just that easy, guys. It's just that easy. So come on down to squarespace.com/MSPaints and use the code MSPaints at checkout to save yourself 10% of your first website subscription or domain. All right, bene.
So this is the Old King, or the Under King, whatever he's called, from Bisterium Miniatures. I've chosen him and printed at a layer height of 10 microns, which is the best it does, and I want to see if we can put him to the ultimate layer line test. I mean, I kind of already know what the outcome is because we did those probe lens test shots where the paint pigments are thicker than the layer lines, so you know, but let's go anyway. I'm going to block out a few colours with acrylic and some contrast to start with, but leave a lot of the areas plainly primed so that we can do the stress test properly. And the stress test, we're going to use oil washes. I want to use oil washes because oils and enamels, once thinned, are great for laser guided honing in on cracks and crevices. If you want to recess wash and keep your large flat surfaces clean, use a heavily diluted oil paint because it will hunt down those panel lines, and not a lot else, to be honest. My approach here is to go with the Marco Frassoni John Blanche style Mechanicus model that he did. It's meant to emulate the sketching style of John Blanche that a lot of us grew up with in Warhammer, which is mostly done with like the Zorn palette principle, I think, essentially limiting yourself to 3 or 4 colours, mixing between them, but all colours become unified that way. It's also a very forgiving and super MS friendly way of painting, and Marco Frassoni's tutorial on this is one of the tutorials that inspired me to start my own channel, which is this one way back when. In regards to the model, the approach is to cover your lightest colours with a few tones of thick oil washes. Thicker is better because it actually creates texture and body as it dries. We're not just talking about tinting colours here, we're creating shapes and patterns and textures as we go, and as we use different kinds of tools to apply and remove it. Mostly, we use a Q-tip to strip back the reverse highlight of the model by applying white spirit and reactivating the oil paint on the raised surfaces. Speaking of adding textures, some neat oil paint applied with a sponge makes for some really chunky blood and sinew effects. Here I'm mixing a lighter crimson and a dark red wine red to create the effect of fresh and dried blood. And the more saturated colours from this really pop out on the model. Last step is to add some more contrast by applying a deep red and a lighter orange pigment powder to really add layers of crust, filth and colour pop to the old king's robes. And even though I went totally off book and got distracted when painting this guy up, we have to ask, can we see the layer lines? No, absolutely not. Oil and enamels normally seek out layer lines with laser guided precision, but here they just have nothing to grip in terms of faults in quality that would give this model away as 3D printed. Is the quality of this print enough to rival some of the best production quality on the miniature gaming market? Yes, why not? I think so. So I think I really like this printer. The only thing that I really omitted from filming was replacing an FEP film. That was stressful enough without having to film it. And by that I mean I just had to swap out the FEP sheet at the bottom of the tank. And it's a totally fairly normal, routine, common, absolutely mundane procedure for most resin 3D printers. I've just never done it myself before. And just as an additional, slightly more expensive note, this printer doesn't use FEP, it uses FCP or something like that, which is basically a thicker film that is also slightly cloudy. That's what that means to me. Maybe that means, maybe FCP stands for thicker, cloudier. But yeah, can you use standard FEP? Yes, I believe you can. Did I do that? No, I got the FCP because I had the settings dialed in I wanted. I was getting good results and I thought it was better to spend like 20, maybe 30% more on this stuff that just worked. In the future, will I switch to FEP? Quite possibly to save money. But based on having a video to turn around, I didn't want to just introduce a whole new variable into the mix of something I don't really fully already understand. So I played it safe there. And I would say the printing results kind of speak for themselves. I'm not a 3D printer tech guy. 3D printing is not my hobby. It's an accessory to my existing hobby, which is miniature wargaming tabletop painting stuff. There are no visible layer lines. There's lines where the plate has obviously slipped a smidge, and there's like a clear single line around, an otherwise immaculate print, which doesn't bother me that much. Resin-wise, everyone does have their own opinions. I started off with the Elegoo Rapid resin, which has a 1.8 second cure time, but I went up to 2 just for safety. And then with some current prints that I've got going on, I'm using the Elegoo Standard Grey resin. The difference between the two is not actually that much. Like, the standard resin is advertised at taking 8 seconds to cure a layer. I've currently got it on 3 seconds per layer, and it is completely fine. In summary, I do think this is the best resin printer that I've ever used. I've used 5 in total. I am going to keep the Creality Hallet 1 going because, it's the best £80 I've ever spent, really, and it refuses to die. It's really slow, but it just gets the job done, guaranteed every time. Not to say that this new one doesn't, it's just nice to have 2, right? The Mars Pro 4 Ultra, the Mars 4 Ultra, the Ninja Blender, is absolutely what I was told 3D printing was going to be 4 years ago, if that makes sense. Like, I think I bought the first Elegoo Mars, and what I expected out of this one is what I expected out of the first one. But we're kind of finally pretty much there now. In terms of me recommending it, yeah, I would say so, but it depends absolutely what you've already got. As a Sony camera user, I'm used to like iterative stat and power creep, and there's no point in getting a new Sony camera that comes out every 6 months because there's maybe one change to it. It's better to wait. I would say wait 3 years between iterations of stuff. With this printer, if you've got a printer from 3 or 4 years ago, like the Creality Hallet 1 that I do, this one is a definite step up. It's a great thing to have. If you're looking for a first-time printer, yes, definitely get this one. If you've got a Mars 3 Pro or a Saturn 3 Top Shagger edition, this might not be an essential buy for you, but obviously it does have cool little features like being able to print with, was it 10 microns or something like that? And this thing, technically, via distribution of some weird numbers I don't understand, this is actually the highest resolution printer that Elegoo make, even though there's a 12K one above it or some shit like that. I don't fully understand. And for example, if you're thinking of going from a 4 to a 4 Ultra or a 4 Pro to a 4 Ultra, just don't bother. I wouldn't bother. But ultimately, if you want to 3D print some really clean stuff with a really reliable tech in terms of its build and its firmware and its software, I ran Chitubox to do all my slicing, then yeah, this is kind of the one, really. If you've been sat on the fence about getting a 3D printer, just get this one. $270, I think, is the price, which feels good, man. Yeah.